Let's talk about Publix Check Cashing. Everything you need to know, I will explain to you from A to Z. So here's an overview. When you think about Publix, when you think about the pub, a lot of folks know about shopping. Some people know about couponing, but I want to talk to you about the monetary side of things. How do you actually cash checks at the pub, at Publix? Okay. So if you are searching for a convenient place to cash a check, Publix, one of the most well-known supermarket chains in the southeastern United States, might be a great option for you. And their customer service is really, really fantastic. Okay. So what I want to explain to you in today's conversation is Publix check cashing services, including the types of checks accepted, fees, limits, and other essential details you need to really have in mind. And I want to make sure that you have all the info you need before heading to your local Publix sort of store. Let's first talk about the types of checks that Publix does cash, okay? Because they're very particular when it comes to the typology of checks they cash. So Publix offers a check cashing services for various types of checks, but it is essential to know which ones they accept. They have payroll checks, government checks, personal checks, and they have cashier's checks too. Let me break it down a little bit more for you. So when I speak about payroll checks, these are the most commonly cashed checks at the pub, as many customers appreciate the convenience of cashing their paychecks while shopping. You also have government checks. So Publix also cashes government issued checks such as tax refunds, social security payments, and stimulus checks. Back in the days during COVID, it was really those were really popular. I'm speaking about the stimulus checks. You also have personal checks. So while not as commonly accepted at many locations, Publix does cash personal checks at select stores. And so what you want to do is you want to call ahead to confirm if your store offers this service, okay? And you also have cashier's checks. So cashier's check, those are also accepted, typically subject to the same rules and limits as other types of checks. So that's really good. So bottom line here is that Publix offers flexibility in the types of checks it cashes. But it's always a good idea to verify with your local store before actually making a trip. I want to go back to the whole conversation about personal checks because see, the thing is with personal checks, you do have a kind of like a high level of fraud, a potential for fraud. Okay, so one of the most frequently asked question is, does the pub cash personal checks? The answer is definitely yes, but there are a few caveats to keep in mind. Okay, not every Publix location offers a personal check cashing, and those that do may have stricter limits and requirements than other checks. It's one of those things where again they're trying to cover their back too. I mean, it's all about reducing the potential for a fraud. Okay, let me give you a few tips here. One thing you want to do is if you have a personal check and you want to really you want to cash personal checks at Publix, you want to call your local Publix to confirm if they cash personal checks, and if they do, ask them about the requirements and also the limits, because sometimes they do have monetary limits, dollar amounts over which they will not go. Like they can say, you know what, we only cash personal checks up to $1,000 or up to $5,000, but then you have to provide this and this and this in terms of IDs. Okay, so you got to provide a proof of identification. So yeah, so you got to really ask about if they do, the monetary amount, the monetary threshold, and the requirements to actually cash the check. So that's number one. And also be prepared to always present valid identification. And you need to understand that fees may be higher for personal checks. And this makes sense, okay? It's all about risk mitigation. It's all about Publix covering their back, because with personal checks, as I said a little earlier, the potential for fraud is really high. So be very careful if you are interested, if you want to cash your personal check at Publix. Now, for a more detailed comparison of check cashing options, I want you to really go back to a video that we actually we did on the whole topic, how other grocery stores handle check cashing. So you have a clear idea how things work across the board, you know, at Walmart, at Publix, at Kmart, at other at Kroger, for instance, other places. So that's something that way you have a better understanding of the whole conversation. So if you think about Publix check cashing, what are the fees? Because the whole thing is, of course, convenience is pretty cool. It's pretty cool, but why would you go to Publix versus Kroger or Walmart? What are the pros and cons? So and money, the fees rather, are part of the pros and cons. So understanding the fee structure is kind of critical for you if you are looking to cash a check at Publix. The fees for cashing checks at Publix are generally competitive, but they can vary based on several factors. So you have percentage-based fees, you have flat fees, and you have location various. And let me first explain to you what I mean by percentage-based fees. Publix typically charges a fee based on a percentage of the check's total value. Let me give you an example. If the fee is 1% and you are cashing, let's say, a $500 check, you will pay $5 in fees, right? And so they'll give you $495. What about flat fees? In some cases, especially for smaller checks, Publix may charge a flat fee, and this is more common for checks under $500. They can say, you know what, we'll charge you a $5 or we charge you $10. Okay, and that way at least they are covering their operational expenses too. Okay, because if the check is very small, if the check amount is small, doing a percentage based fee model is not really interesting for them. Because imagine if somebody were to cash a $50 check and you charging 1% or 2%, that's like that's pennies, and it's not really worth it for them. And you also have location variance, so fees may vary by location. So it's always wise, as I said, as I've been saying earlier, to inquire about the exact cost when you visit your local store. Like if you went to shop at Publix, you can just take 5 minutes to ask customer service how things go on the check cashing aspect of things. Okay, and if you're looking to minimize fees, please watch our video about how to avoid check cashing fees. Okay, because this will help you a lot understand how the whole things work. Now, one thing for sure, Publix fees are competitive, but they do vary. So please ask your local store for their specific fee structure before you head there. I want to talk to you now about Publix check cashing limits. So if you are thinking about cashing checks at Publix, you got to be aware of certain limits, especially when it comes to like amounts in 4 digits, with 5 digits, even 6 digits. Because that happens. So another important aspect to consider is actually the limit on the amount you can cash at Publix. And the amount is not because Publix cannot really cash your checks. It has to do with regulatory directives, things that have to do with anti-money laundering (AML) regulations. But you also have the fact that Publix has to mitigate risk. Okay, risk of fraud, risk of anything else. Okay, because anytime you deal with money, you got to have a certain limits. Otherwise, you are exposing yourself big time. And a store chain such as Publix cannot actually expose itself that broadly. Okay, and so there are actually three important criteria you want to pay attention to when it comes to the type of check and the specific store. When it comes to the limit on the amount you can cash. Okay, so you have general limits, you have higher limits, and you have personal check limits. Again, remember, the limit can vary depending on the type of check and the specific store. So when you think about general limits, typically Publix will cash checks up to $500 to $1,000 without any issues. So anytime you have a check that's 3 digits, no problem. Then now you have a higher limit. So for certain types of checks, such as payroll or government issued checks, the limit can be higher, sometimes up to $5,000. But it has to be coming from a specific source, government, or like payroll checks from reputable companies. Okay, and you also have a personal check limit. So personal checks usually have the lowest limits, often capped at $500 or less. And again, you can understand why, because the risk for fraud is actually higher. So if you need to cash a check that exceeds Publix limits, you may need to visit a bank or a specialized check cashing service. For higher value checks, consider really having like watching our video about where to cash big checks. Publix check cash limits vary by check type and location, so be aware of that. So if you think about Publix check cashing, now I want to explain to you the steps you need to take this year to actually cash a check at Publix. Okay, and these steps are pretty standard across all Publix locations. So you don't need to call before, but you can always while you are at the store, you can just confirm a little bit. But those steps that I'm giving you into this conversation are pretty standard. So cashing a check at Publix is straightforward, but knowing the process beforehand can save you time and hassle, especially if you have other stuff to do, like if you have other shopping going on, or you have finished your shopping and you have a lot of groceries and you want to really go through the process real fast. First, you want to locate a Publix store. So locate a Publix store all the time and use the Publix store locator online and find the nearest store that offers check cashing services. Or while you are at your store, ask if they have check cashing services in there. And so once you locate a Publix store, you want to bring proper identification. Ensure you have a valid government-issued photo ID, such as a driver's license, state ID, or a passport. Then you want to visit the customer service desk, okay? It's one of those things where you want to head to the customer service desk with your check and ID. The cashier will verify the authenticity of the check and your identification. They always do that. They always authenticate the check to make sure that you are legit, quote unquote legit. Okay, and you want to pay the fee. I mean, the fees. I spoke to you a little earlier about the fees. The fees. So the cashier will inform you of the fee, which will be deducted from the total check amount. It can be percentage based. It can be a flat fee, or it can be something else. And then you'll receive your cash. Pretty straightforward. So once everything is verified, you will receive your cash minus the fee. Let me give you a few hacks before I close to this conversation here. It's always advisable to call ahead and confirm the store's check cashing hours because they may actually differ from regular store hours. And be aware of the check limits and fees to avoid surprises. Very important, especially if you have large check amounts to cash. So when you think about Publix check cashing, it's not just about check cashing at Publix. You have other services that you need to be aware of, okay? So in addition to a check cashing, Publix offers a range of other financial services, including money orders, bill payment services, Western Union, and so on and so forth. So let me break it down for you. And by the way, Publix is not the only one doing it. I mean, Kroger does the same thing. Walmart does the same thing too. So when you think about money orders, you can purchase money orders at most Publix locations. About bill payment services, some stores offer bill payment services, allowing you really to pay various bills at the customer service desk. What about Western Union? Many Publix stores offer Western Union services, enabling you to send and receive money. So the good thing is that Publix is more than just a grocery. Sorry about that. Let me drink some water here. Thank you. So basically, I was just saying that Publix is more than a grocery store. It's also a convenient place to handle several financial transactions, really. And so it's one of those things where when you think about money orders, a money order is a lot like a check, and purchasing a money order at Publix is just like buying anything else. You don't even need a bank account. And that's a good thing. You don't need a bank account. And this is a service provided by Western Union, by the way. You also have money transfers. And this is also another service provided by Western Union, okay? You also have a coin redemption. So you can trade your coins for cash through Publix. And basically, they have a coin sorting machine that will count all your coins and provide you with a receipt to redeem it for cash at the customer service counter. So this is really good from a flexibility point of view, okay? And you also have check cashing, or you'll also have Presto ATMs. You can access your cash at any of, let's say, Publix Presto ATMs located outside the vestibule at over 1,350 of their stores. And Presto members enjoy secure, surcharge-free access and that's really good, especially if you want flexibility in your monetary affairs. So when you think about check cashing at Publix, I want you to really understand that basically Publix is pretty flexible in terms of the amount it really accepts at its stores. You can actually cash checks over $1,000, but this depends on the type of check and the specific store's policies. So government and payroll checks are more likely to be accepted for higher amounts. And so fees, when it comes to fees, fees vary, but are generally a small percentage of the check amounts. Okay, it's also best to really reach out to your local store and inquire about their conditions, if you will. And also, Publix will cash personal checks at some locations, but again, you want to confirm with your local stores first. And the check cashing limit can go from 5,000, in some cases $7,500. Again, this depends on the type of check and store locations. Okay, and you can also cash a handwritten check at Publix. Some locations do accept handwritten checks, including personal checks, but with stricter limits and higher fees. Okay, and something really you need to really understand. But just also understand that Publix, through its partnership with Western Union, actually is expanding its area of financial services. And in some locations, they are in talks to also offer RIA. So they want to bring in a Western Union competitor. So besides Western Union, they are thinking about having RIA. So customers will have more choices. And that's kind of cool because it really really democratized the whole process of money sending or money receiving. So that's really good. Bottom line is that if you want to ensure a smooth transaction, you want to understand the specifics of Publix policies, including the types of checks accepted, fees, and limits, especially the specific location you want to go. You want to go to. Okay, you want to head to. It's important, and that's why it's always important to call the call the store first, and ask all questions that you have before going there physically. That way, you have no surprises, and you can have your transactions done for you really fast. Okay, but good thing is Publix, they have great customer service. They offer a lot of convenience in the whole money transfer or check cashing process. So that's really good, and they do this across the nation. Of course, they're not really present like Walmart in all 50 states, but in the geographies where they are located, they are very, very, very efficient and seamless. So here's a takeaway into this conversation. I spoke to you about Publix check cashing. I'll give you the overview, the steps, and now the takeaway. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.